Now at 5, Missouri Governor Mike Parson issues an executive order to address the state's drought conditions. Plus, how local firefighters are staying safe during this intense heat, and
President Biden has tested positive for COVID-19. I'm Deborah Alfarone at the White House with an update on his condition and his medical treatment.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Missouri Governor Mike Parson is taking steps to address drought conditions in the Show Me State. This is KOAM News at 5. With the recent intense heat and very limited rain, much of the 4 states is in a drought. Today, Governor Parson issued an executive order calling upon the Missouri Department of Natural Resources to activate the Drought Assessment Committee and drought impact teams. These groups will look at ways they can support farmers affected by the conditions. One way is farmers are going to be allowed access to water at state parks and conservation areas. No relief anytime soon. Let's check in with Doug Heddy.
No, one crazy thing here is we're actually above average on rainfall for the year because we had 15 inches in the month of May, but we haven't really had anything since, so that is increasing our drought across the Central Plains. In fact, let's go ahead and zoom in. You can see a severe drought for at least half of us and then a moderate drought for our northern counties. So we need some rain. We don't really have much out there. We've seen a couple little showers out across northeastern Oklahoma. Heat advisory for the next couple hours and then reissue again for us tomorrow. Look at the scattered showers. So at least northeastern Oklahoma has picked up a few random little showers. Not much, but at least something that we're seeing outside. And of course the heat. Temperature is about 100 to 102 degrees, and we're going to see this sticking around the next few days. We'll talk about rain chances here in just a bit.
See you then. In this heat wave, Joplin firefighters have one of the most dangerous jobs. You might wonder how they tolerate the heat with all that gear. Well, Amanda Statz of the JFD says hydration, training, and staying acclimated to the weather helps firefighters when they're out on the job.
Hydration is important. Making sure that you're physically fit for the job and making sure that you train yourself to become acclimated into these conditions. Hydration, I would say, is 100% your most important factor into firefighting in these kinds of conditions.
A historic community in Jasper County is getting new life. Red Oak 2 is an art installation by artist Lowell Davis replicating the historic Red Oak. Well, now Red Oak 2 is getting a new addition to its collection of buildings. Officials are bringing in a courthouse resembling the original one in Jasper County. The crew hopes to begin work next week, weather permitting. One of the builders, Danny Pippin, is excited to start the building process.
I built a lot of log houses, but this one here, all the log houses I built are new log houses. This one here is the first old log house that I actually will have moved and put back together.
The crew plans to have the cabin rebuilt after the Red Oak 2 festival in September. More than 2 years into the pandemic, President Biden has tested positive for COVID-19. Deborah Alfarone reports from the White House.
Folks, guess you heard this morning I tested positive for COVID.
President Biden is working from the White House after testing positive for COVID-19. Thursday afternoon, he tweeted out this video, speaking directly to the camera from the White House balcony.
Symptoms are mild, and I really appreciate your inquiries and your concerns.
The president recently returned from the Middle East and was in Massachusetts Wednesday, where he came into contact with several members of Congress.
I understand that the symptoms are light. I hope they continue to be so. That was my experience.
The president's doctor says his symptoms are mild and include a runny nose, fatigue, and occasional dry cough. He's being treated with the antiviral drug Paxlovid.
The goal of Paxlovid is to keep people from getting seriously ill.
President Biden, who is 79, has been reminding Americans that he's been vaccinated and boosted twice.
Every American deserves access to the best vaccines, the best treatments, and they are widely available.
Former President Trump became infected with COVID just before the 2020 election and was flown to Walter Reed Medical Center for aggressive treatment.
We're in a very different place than when former President Trump got COVID. That was before we had vaccines. It was before we had Paxlovid.
President Biden postponed a crime prevention event in Pennsylvania today. The White House says he will continue to carry out all of his duties in isolation until he tests negative.
Deborah Alfarone, CBS News, the White House.
Vice President Kamala Harris, who previously recovered from COVID-19, tested negative for the virus this morning. She was last with the president on Tuesday. The House voted today to codify a decades-old Supreme Court ruling relating to contraception. The 1965 Griswold versus Connecticut decision protects the right of married couples to buy and use contraceptives without government restriction. It's a decision that conservative Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas has suggested the current court might revisit. The vote today was largely along party lines. That bill is not expected to pass the Senate. The House January 6th committee will hold another prime-time hearing tonight. This one will focus on former President Trump's actions as rioters violently stormed the Capitol and how law enforcement eventually turned the tide. The committee is expected to detail the efforts by the former president's inner circle to convince him to take action during the assault, as well as the fallout later that evening and into the next day. Still ahead, what a new survey shows about the nation's supply of powdered baby formula. And next in Health Watch, we're going to have answers to some common questions about the current risk of COVID. Topping today's Health Watch with the even more contagious BA.5 subvariant surging nationwide, many people have new questions about their risk of COVID-19. Reporter Danya Bacchus has more.
COVID cases and hospitalizations are increasing across the country, with the highly contagious BA.5 subvariant now accounting for about 78% of all COVID infections in the U.S. Now, many people are asking, if they had COVID in the last 3 months, will they have immunity against this variant?
So if you got COVID 3 months ago, it's very likely you had the BA.2 variant, which is an earlier variant. The BA.5 variant is so different from all the variants, all the Omicron variants that came before it. It's very unlikely you have much in the way of protection from that prior infection.
CBS News medical contributor Dr. Celine Gounder is editor-at-large at KFF's Kaiser Health News. She says this new subvariant is one reason why those eligible for a booster should not delay getting it.
People who are eligible for a second booster are people who are 50 and up or 12 and up and immunocompromised. You should go and get that second booster now.
Others are asking if there will be a specific vaccine for the BA.5 variant.
Moderna and Pfizer are both working on these updated combo vaccines that will include the original formulation as well as a BA.5 component. Those will not be available until probably late October, early November. So if you're eligible for a booster now, don't wait for that one. You'll still be able to get that one.
And what about the severity of BA.5 in children? Dr. Gounder says we don't know much, but parents should get children vaccinated as soon as possible because tens of thousands have been hospitalized and hundreds have died from COVID. Danya Bacchus, CBS News, Los Angeles.
The CDC says the U.S. is averaging more than 120,000 known cases per day. But with many people testing at home, the actual number is probably much higher. The coronavirus vaccine rollout helped some frontline healthcare workers in England avoid infection in 2020. New research in the BMJ finds an extra 10% of all hospital staff would have been infected and many more out sick if the vaccines weren't available in the second wave of the pandemic. Children who know about their mother's genetic cancer risk might be better off. According to researchers at Georgetown University, young people born with mothers who carry the deadly gene for cancer are more knowledgeable about the disease than those born to healthy mothers. They also found detrimental lifestyle behaviors such as alcohol or tobacco use did not vary among children regardless of their mother's health. And scientists in the UK may have discovered a new way to fight certain lung cancers. They found treating patients with immunotherapy alongside a drug that blocks a common gene mutation might give them the best chance of living longer. And that is a look at today's health news. A little bit later, the latest unemployment report from the Labor Department.
Plus, we have some rain chances, which are going to increase over the next week, which we need. We're going to look at that coming up. Well, of course, it turned out to be another hot, kind of sticky day outside for us today. Today's day number 11 that we have hit 100 degrees this summer. Of course, prior to this summer, we haven't done it since 2018. We haven't had a stretch like this since 2012. Looks good. This is our Indigo Sky Casino and Resort, of course, just outside of Seneca, Missouri. All right, so we saw the drought has increased. Check this out. We've only had a half an inch of rain this month, but we're still above average. We're at 28 inches. We're still 1.5 inches above average for the year. We just didn't spread that rain out. We got it all in the months of April and May, so we really need some rain. Heat advisory stay in effect. This is in Oklahoma and Arkansas for the next couple hours, and then they'll reissue once again as we go into the daytime hours tomorrow. But it's hot. 102 in Lamar, we're at 97 in Grand, Neodesha at 100. We have 99 in Nevada. But here's the good news. The humidity's been pretty good across the region. These are our dew points. When they're sitting in the 50s in the summer months, that's pretty pleasant, not bad. Of course, 102, it's hot, but we don't have that real muggy, soupy atmosphere outside, which we get so often here in the summer months. 102 is where we sit, but look at the heat index, it's 100, so it actually feels a little bit cooler than what it actually is due to that relative humidity at 19%. We'll drop back through the 90s, 80s, eventually mid-70s a little bit later on tonight, and we have had at least some isolated little tiny showers that had popped up northeastern parts of Oklahoma. Not enough to help the drought, but at least there are some raindrops out there. All the bigger storms are out across central parts of Kansas, down through Oklahoma, and then really some very much needed rain once you get south toward Fort Smith. We aren't going to see any of that. We're going to stay mainly hot and mainly dry as we go through the next couple days. Then our rain chances will start to increase. Let's go through time. Isolated shower, southern counties through the evening. Most of the night is going to be dry. We drop back mid-70s. As we go through the morning hours tomorrow, another quick warm-up, mid-90s by noon. As we get into the afternoon, most of us right around 100. I think we'll probably hit 100, maybe 101, so a notch or two cooler tomorrow, and a very slight chance for a few isolated thunderstorms late in the day. As we go into tomorrow night, we drop back again, upper 70s, overnight lows. Heading into the weekend, Saturday, temperatures again warm up right around 100 to about 102 degrees. So at least we're not going 105, 106. Heat indices tomorrow, 103, 104, much of the same as we go into Saturday as well. But as we get into Sunday and Monday, we finally start to get a cold front that sinks a little bit farther south. That is going to help our chances for showers and even a few thunderstorms increasing by next week. We need the rain. All right, tomorrow we're going to keep the alert days because we're right around 100. 101 tomorrow, 102 Saturday, up to 106 on Sunday. We hold into the 100s. We do get some rain chances in here next week, and check this out. Next Thursday,
Wow.
89, 90s into next week. And so that is the relief that we have been waiting for and hopefully we get.
And desperately need. It's unusual for it to feel cooler than it actually is in summer.
Yeah.
Typically it's the other way around.
The Vegas heat.
Yes, it is. Thanks, Doug. Coming up, an update on the baby formula shortage, but first we honor a local World War II veteran. Skidmore, Kansas native Jacob Langerot served in the U.S. Army from 1942 to 1945, stationed in Europe and in North Africa. His awards include a Purple Heart, and we are proud to salute Staff Sergeant Jacob Langerot, a four-state hero. Topping today's Consumer Watch, new claims for jobless benefits are at their highest weekly level since late last year. The Labor Department released its report today, revealing initial applications for unemployment insurance rose to 251,000 in the week ending Saturday. It's the highest weekly level since November, up by 7,000 claims from the previous week. The biggest job losses are happening in tech, real estate, and mortgage lending companies, as well as big box retail sectors. Rents are on the rise again, hitting another record high in June. The national median rent is now $1,876 a month. That's according to Realtor.com's rental report. It's 14% higher than a year ago. June marks the 16th consecutive month of record highs, but the report found it's still a better deal to rent versus buying right now. Even with higher rents, it's still 30% lower than the typical monthly cost for new home ownership. A new survey says the supply of baby formula powder is at its lowest level in stores since the shortage began earlier this year. Research firm IRA found more than 21% of all formula products are out of stock nationwide. That number jumps to more than 31% for powdered formula. The FDA plans to review its own handling of the crisis, but the shortage is still affecting families now. Reporter Meg Oliver spoke to two moms who say it's harder than ever to feed their children.
I've been searching everywhere.
For Julia Morgan and her 8-month-old daughter Tatum, finding formula is a daily struggle.
How much formula do you have left right now?
About a week and a half.
Tatum is lactose intolerant and needs a hypoallergenic formula or she gets very sick.
I thought I was in the clear because I had like 2 months supply.
In February, formula maker Abbott's largest plant shut down for possible contamination. Before the recall, Abbott was responsible for 40% of domestic baby formula. And that same month, formula manufacturers say they alerted retailers to an upcoming shortage. But in June, President Biden admitted that he didn't know about the looming problem until months later.
I became aware of this problem sometime after April, in early April, about how intense it was.
To counter the shortage, the Biden administration launched Operation Fly Formula in May, which by the end of this week will have delivered 61 million 8-ounce equivalent bottles of formula since May.
As of today, we domestically see more product, more baby formula being produced than we saw several months ago.
Adding to the supply problem, that same Abbott plant had to close because of flooding, which backed up production even more. It reopened July 1st, but there are still delays to store shelves.
We're going to work to make sure that they cannot allow a disruption in a plant that closes down to disrupt the availability of the supply that parents need.
But that future action would be too late for those like 8-year-old Izzy Bradford. She's a third grader who suffers from a rare disorder known as PKU and relies on a special formula for about 70% of her nutrition.
In the last 2 months, I don't feel like anything has changed. I think we need to recognize this as a hunger crisis.
Meg Oliver, CBS News, New York.
Abbott remains one of only 4 companies that provide about 90% of domestic baby formula in the U.S. The good news is the FDA commissioner does say formula production is now exceeding consumer demand and that there's a robust pipeline of formula coming in. American and United Airlines have both reported their first operating profits since the start of the pandemic. Strong demand for air travel and high fares allowed the carriers to overcome rising fuel prices. American posted a record second quarter revenue of $13.4 billion. United's revenue was up 6% compared to the same period of 2019, with capacity down 15%. A final check of the forecast next. Up next on the CBS Evening News, a look at the damage recent flooding did to Yellowstone National Park. Then on KOAM News at 6, we're going to hear from Missouri's governor on his executive order addressing drought issues, plus details on a head-on crash in Newton County today that left 2 people dead, and why some Missouri legislators stopped by the Joplin area. Stay with us for the CBS Evening News and then KOAM News at 6. Yesterday marked the 53rd anniversary of the first time humans landed on the moon. I suspect first time non-humans too. Now a piece of that journey to space could be yours for, $1 million or so. The in-flight coverall jacket worn by Buzz Aldrin during Apollo 11 is going up for auction. The jacket has several patches attached to it, including the NASA logo and Aldrin's name tag. When bidding opens next Tuesday, it's going to start at around $700,000, but the jacket's expected to fetch $1 to $2 million. Probably not something you're going to wear for, a night out on the town.
No, I wouldn't think so, but it's a huge piece of history.
Yes, and a collector's item and probably an investment for someone. It's likely to escalate in value, I guess.
Absolutely.
The temperatures have been escalating, Doug.
They have been. We're going to hover right around that 100-degree mark once again tomorrow, Saturday, and then actually increasing a little bit early next week.
Thanks for joining us. We'll see you right back here at 6. Let's make it a great evening.